In January, Paride asked me, okay, this year we are going to make a masterpiece or we are going to solve a problem through a software. What should we do? And we decided to go for the masterpiece. I always trust that quality and love putting into a project will pay off. So what we are trying here is to push the boundary of the 3D browser game at its best.
Welcome to a new episode of XR and AI Spotlight, the show where we give the stage to the founders and makers pushing the boundaries of XR and AI. My name is Gabriele Romagnoli, I'm your host, and I'm here today with Matteo and Paride Stella. Matteo and Paride are the co-founders of Pijama Kasama, an Amsterdam-based studio creating custom experiences and games for brands on platforms like Spatial, Roblox, and Fortnite. They have been working with brands like Absolute, BMW, NASA, and they recently launched their own game based on their own IP called Kasama the Awakening, which is, let me tell you, one of the best web-based looking game that you can try right now. We will dive into their journey and how they captured the learnings to create and launch this unique web experience, including strategy to promote your web-based game.
It's not that easy to be showcased in this platform. And when you create a branded games, you have to think 50% of the investment has to be to make the game and 50% in promotion.
Some tips on how to make sure that even the most ambitious games run smoothly on web and mobile platforms.
I think so. We know a few tips and tricks to make the lighting look, even if it's on a performance budget or on a memory budget, for instance.
The differences when building branded games on Fortnite, Roblox, and Spatial, including the monetization options for creators and even their analytic infrastructure.
That analytics is fundamental. It's the only way you can measure the performance and return of investment. Roblox has a good dashboard. Fortnite, it's pretty closed, and actually this is opening a debate as well on monetization mechanics on this platform. Spatial, it's incredibly open in that. For our project, we built custom analytic systems which we can figure out
and why and how brands should rethink their approach to building and populating these 3D worlds.
Brands need to regain that trust from the player. I see very often that the brands do forget that the actual resource here are the gamers and the gamers who want to play. What happened is that we just build spaces that are showrooms, you have nothing to do in there, and there is this illusion that if there is a brand staying there, it's enough for attracting user, but that's a lie. This is the crusade we're fighting right now because we truly believe in the power of games.
But before we get into it, I wanted to thank our sponsor Meshi, who made this episode possible. Meshi is a real powerhouse for generating 3D assets with AI. You can start with a simple text or image prompt and get high quality stylized model in just a minute. One feature that I personally love is the ability to create stylized textures for any mesh with or without UV, and since the release of Meshing 2.5, pro users can even edit only section of the generated textures with just a text prompt. Try it out, go to meshi.ai, start the 7 days trial, and after that, use the code XRAI20 to get 20% off your subscription. And now it's time to roll the title and welcome Matteo and Paride under the spotlight. Paride, Matteo, it is a real pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us. My pleasure.
So today we are going to discuss about gaming in a way, building worlds and telling stories. So many people are exploring this new venue, either brands, studios, and also the new generation of consumers, however we want to define them. So I want to start asking you, since you have had experience building for various platforms, what are the best platforms for hosting brand activation and why?
Okay, so the question, it's interesting because it really depends on what the target audience is, what the brands want to achieve, and what are their objectives. We've been working with several platforms so far. We like a lot Spatial because Spatial gives us the, especially with our latest release of the C# implementation. So basically, What we're doing now is using Unity as if we were making a standalone game and basically hosting the game on the platform. So this is very good for us because it gives us a lot of freedom, and this is something that allows us basically to do whatever we want. So, for instance, working on Spatial is good if the brand wants something that's completely detached to a certain ecosystem, which could be Roblox or Fortnite. But again, it really depends on what the objectives are. If you want to do something that's very custom, that's very bespoke to the situation or the objective, then Spatial would be good. If you want to tap into a bigger market, for instance, like teenagers or even younger people, then you would go on Roblox, on Fortnite. Obviously, there are differences in graphics and capabilities. So it really depends on what the objectives are.
Yeah, so you mentioned a few things, right, that I would like to unpack a little. So the first thing was indeed the kind of like technical capabilities of the platform, right? You mentioned on Spatial, you can have the C# implementation, so you can build as if you were kind of like from building on Unity. There is an audience side, being like for who that gathers, as well as you mentioned the kind of look and feel that you can obtain, right? So you mentioned that Spatial has this capability with C#. I mean, now for people that might not be familiar with, what should people expect if they are building, for example, a game for Fortnite or Roblox? What are the capabilities? What are the boundaries?
So, for instance, to give an example to people that maybe don't know what those features are and what we're talking about. Say you're working on Fortnite and you want to build something on Fortnite, then given the fact that obviously these platforms are given always more and more freedom to users and to creators. But for instance, if you want to work on Fortnite, you have to stick as much as possible, or it's advisable to stick as much as possible to the Fortnite elements. So, for example, if you want to make something that's using all the Fortnite assets, trees, characters, weapon, mechanics, that's very fast. But if you want to make something that's completely custom, then you have to find workarounds and such things. To give a little bit more context of what means building with directly with C#, it means basically to script your own elements, your own components on a very low level. Obviously, that allows you to change things completely. Like on Fortnite, you would do a third-person shooter. Using C#, you can do a platform, which is completely different.
Okay,
or a racing game or whatever.
So you have much more freedom to be creative, let's say,
Correct.
And to also, let's say, fit the needs of and the brief of the brand potentially, right?
Exactly.
On the other hand, of course, when brands are trying to reach out, there is and work on this activation, reach is of course very important, right? So based on your experience, how have you seen these two elements, like the technological limitation and the reach, contribute to this final decision on which platform to go, and how maybe have you helped brands navigate this?
Yeah, it's definitely important when you create a branded games. You have to think 50% of the investment has to be to make the game and 50% in promotion. So that's important. It's not that easy to be showcased in this platform. And also consider that some platforms like Fortnite are quite new and still in developing. So you need to showcase to share, for example, a code instead of a link. So it's becoming even more difficult there to advertise, to promote the game. So based on also there on the platform and what you can share to reach the platform. Actually, I think today or yesterday, also Roblox released the new is a new area at the top of their main page where there are some highlighted games, and so this create a big discussion in for the developers. So who is going to be showcased there and why, and who is paying for that? So UGC in a ways is also has to merge with the brand, and the brand should not be conceived as the enemy that are going to destroy the developers that are already populating the platform.
So wait, can you explain me that? What do you mean the brand should not be seen as evil?
Yeah. So So what is a UGC, right? So basically, you have a game, and this game become popular. And the trend now is that if they become popular, you create all of a system behind. So you basically open some mechanics and some codes to being able to use the same mechanics to develop new game. And this is the target here are not the brand, but are the users. So the user can generate the brand. And then there are some brands that, for example, hire us, a studio like us, to make a quality experience inside this platform. But this experience has to be has to respect the platform, the developers, and for example, now there is the SpongeBob, and it was like 5 experience all over SpongeBob. And people start asking like, why I'm not the first one today? How this is decided? So that's why you should study the platform to understand the audience that is inside. It's also good to notice that there are also other platforms that are maybe less known. For example, Minecraft is really big. GTA 5 is really big. So we are also taking a look of that experience to bring a new kind of branding experience there.
Oh my God, there is so much I want to ask. I'm not sure we have the time to cover everything. But so the first thing is that you brought up a key point, and that is you can build a world, but then you need to market it, right? You need to get people in it. So there are 2 elements you have mentioned, one being the algorithm or in general, the platform itself that is showcasing certain experiences. And then there is the marketing side, right? That is clearly dependent on the type of platform. For example, as you mentioned, some you might have a link. In some cases, you do not have a link that people can click, right? So create very different mechanics. Can you maybe what are some of the successful things that you have tried to market and to show these words to users, either in Roblox or maybe Fortnite or maybe Spatial? What are the strategy that you have seen work?
I think it's a matter of understanding what's the target, because I see very often that the brands do forget that the actual resource here are the gamers, and the gamers who want to play. So the actual currency of this world is playtime, right? And firstly, you have to touch on market points that are close to gamers. For instance, YouTube, Google, so things that gamers do reach. But also you have to think about what are you offering them, because gamer obviously want to play, but what we've seen in the last years are not actual games that appeal to the audience, and that's also creating some kind of adversity towards brands, because gamers are skeptical now.
Oof, that's a big one. So what you're saying is that the games are not. So what is going wrong then with the games that have been built?
Yeah, I think that this is a mix of several factors. That this is something that I always talk about, but I think it's a mix of the metaverse wave and a little bit the fact that I think that the agents that are doing those activations, I don't think they truly understand where the purpose of doing the games is. Because I think that's, at least for our experience, they are mostly satisfied when there is something online that's 3D. Something that's online that's 3D, it's not necessarily a game.
We did it. We have 3D stuff online. Yes,
exactly.
We achieved our corporate goals.
Exactly. And the metaverse wave also, I think, that contaminated a lot the perception of that, because a little bit with the same dynamics, what happened is that we just build spaces that are showrooms. You have nothing to do in there. And there is this illusion that if there is a brand, the brand staying there, it's enough for attracting user, but that's a lie. That's never true. It's quite the opposite. The brand exists because they have an offering, because they have value.
So then we are accelerating at breakneck speed, but then I'm gonna ask you, what is you have seen that works better as a form of game on these platforms? You mentioned about nothing to do, so I imagine that of course interactive, and maybe storytelling might be some elements, but maybe you can build on top of these guys.
Yeah. So obviously this is the crusade we're fighting right now, because we truly believe in the power of games, and I think that we can all agree that the gaming industry, it's a very big one. It's one of the biggest, and it has a lot of drive. The gaming industry works because games are fun, right? And because people want to play. But to give you an example of something that actually worked, I'm gonna pick an example from the very early days of Fortnite, when the Avengers came out, and they actually introduced a different game mode in which Thanos showed up in the map, and that actually changed the gameplay. So people that were not interested in the Avengers, they didn't really care that was Thanos or somebody else, but they had to play this mode because this mode was fun back in the days, or at least I remember being fun. But then eventually they got to know the Avengers. This is a good way of introducing narrative gameplay, introducing branding inside a game. But if you just also, this is touching on another very hot point, which is rewards. But like, for instance, say they did this activation by giving player a Thanos skin, that wouldn't have the same impact. So the idea of rewarding being enough for engaging, but it's not like that. Also, if we want to touch on what we are doing right now, it's trying to showcase what actually narrative gameplay, very good gameplay that's linked to a theme linked to some narrative means. So yeah, on our side with our game, we are trying to give an example of what we believe is the best practice of doing that.
We are certainly going to discuss about that, and you're going to tell us more about Kasama the Awakening. One thing I want to backtrack a second was when Matteo mentioned the discovery work experimentation with other popular platforms, being Minecraft, being GTA, for example. Like, at what level is your research? I mean, like, how could you build a game in Minecraft, in GTA? What kind of, because the demographic is radically different, I expect. Also might be for some of these games.
Yeah, so actually GTA 5 is a totally comparable metaverse as like the other platform, and you have a mod, and in this mod you can enter, you can create your worlds, you can create your mechanics, there is economics inside, and for this reason we believe that the GTA 6 will bring something new. And so because we are gamer ourselves and we want to make games, of course we look at also the best player, and definitely Rockstar is one to look up.
Right. So then I'm curious also, like, from you guys as an agency, right? How do you actually help brands understand which platform they should use? Like, how do you guide them through this process?
So firstly, we have to do research. We have to understand what the brand's objectives are. I think that we are in a state which is a little bit of a gray zone, because brands, yes, it's true that they have been doing activation on games for quite some years, but I think this is still an early stage. So for brands, it's important to establish a digital presence. I do believe that an extra task that brands need to do at the moment is regain that trust from the player. At least this is our perspective. So the way we guide them is, firstly, try to figure out what's their objective, and we kind of form this objective into a way of making something that actually is bringing value to the player. And according to what the outcome of that process is, we choose the platform. Obviously, there are some accessibility factors that can also change the outcome of that research. For instance, it goes without saying, but like if you want to make something on Fortnite, you have to expect your players, your audience, to have Fortnite installed. But if you want to have something that's a little bit more accessible, say you want to put it in your website, now we go to something that's more leaning toward WebGL, for instance, Spatial. that has a very good cross-platform capabilities. So it's a little bit what you want to achieve, what's the freedom that you want to give us to make this space to achieve those objectives that, in our opinion, need to go through real gaming.
So then, when you mention, I can imagine that there might be different types of games that can be developed, right? Maybe like collecting tokens or exploration or storytelling. So out of the experience that you have built, what are some examples that you could share being maybe more successful or geared to a certain type of audience for a specific reason? Can you maybe share some?
Yeah, so experiences that usually are successful are the experiences that give the most engagement. I know that's obvious, but in order to achieve that, there are a few things that you can bring into the equation. For instance, competition. So if competition works well in a multiplayer environment that's working flawlessly, or whether it is synchronous or asynchronous, that's something that works very well. For instance, with the Absolute activation, we made a single player game that actually had a shared leaderboard. So it was this sliding game in which you had to get as much objects along the path as possible, and that gave you points. But then you see your score on a leaderboard, and that's driving players to do better. So usually competition is one of those tools that you use to boost engagement. But obviously, there is the idea of making something beautiful, so something that you just wanna play through because it's an eye candy for you, right? So then it could be an RPG game, so with some dialogue, some choices, some puzzles. Obviously, you also have to think, what is your long-term objective? Do you want to keep player playing, or is it something that you want player to play once because they have to learn something at that point in time? So these are a couple of tools that you can do, like something beautiful and something competitive. It are two great ways of doing that.
Yeah, I would add also. So now we are seeing brands with short activation trying to try different platform, but what we believe is having a longer video games episodes. So our idea is basically creating a Netflix idea for the video games, where we blend movies and video games. And imagine you receive a 1 hour game, and the first week, the second week another, and then and this go on. So we want to basically bring the idea of the brands that has to be there to create their IP, to keep on showing that they are present and they have creative ideas. And this is to say that there is not only one type of game, but when you have the IP, when you have your own brand, then you can play with different games. So it's not limited to one typology of game, definitely.
Yeah, also we learned that the time span, the attention span of player is very short. Actually, after 2 weeks, their attention span goes way down. So the idea of making this episodic approach, it's very valuable at this point in time.
So you mentioned two key things. One being engagement, that I suppose is one of the key metrics that, of course, brands are looking at. And the other is the length of this experience, not per se of how much I'm going to play 5 or 10 minutes, but for how long does this stays online and lives online, right? Exactly. So I first would like to touch on the first thing being engagement. Like, what are, I suppose that's very dependent on platform, but what are some kind of like benchmark that you could share regarding what is a good engagement of a game, what is an average engagement, how, because that is also a piece of information that would help agency and brands understand where do they stand. Are they doing good? Are they doing bad? Could they be better? What is actually achievable? Do you have some examples?
Yeah, already 10 minutes of engagement is a great achievement in a game. So imagine we build a story, and this story maybe lasts 20 minutes. This is already a great achievement in attention economy, right? In the idea of social media, and And also, I think it's also good to realize that video games are new social media, right? This gaming is a new social media, and in Roblox there are more than 70 million users per day. So it becomes even better than TikTok, for example. So if you see this from the attention economy, games are not passive, are interactive. And on what we said before is also important from the brand perspective. They are always looking for educate the user, not only in their brand in a superficial way of just showcasing their logo everywhere, but is also creating engaging characters, engaging stories that you fell in love with the character. I mean, Apple is the first one who taught us that you don't have to showcase the brand, right? You have to build on emotion, and I think games are actually a great medium to reach this.
You mentioned these 10 minutes as, let's say, a good target. Is that something that you get in terms of data independently from every platform? Since we have discussed, we are making this comparison. Can you get equally well those values that you can share with the brand, or there are
Yeah,
differences?
definitely. Data analytic is something that we share, we must share, and the brands require. Because at the end of the day, you also have to evaluate your investment on this. And but it's also true that you have to experiment a lot, and it might be that the first game is not the best, but you still build something. You still build an audience there that you have to keep on feeding.
Right, right. But so just to understand, Fortnite, Roblox, Spatial, they all provide analytics about how much time people
In
spend.
different ways. They are not identical, obviously. Roblox as a good dashboard. Fortnite, it's pretty closed. And actually, this is opening a debate as well on monetization mechanics on this platform, because as far as we know, these information aren't so clear and are not fully disclosed. For instance, Spatial, it's incredibly open in that. And actually, we for our project, we built custom analytic systems in which we can figure out how long somebody's watching the video, if there's a video there, or how many tries did they do on a game, what's their score, for instance, those things. But obviously, yeah, again, data analytics is fundamental. It's the only way you can measure the performance and return of investment.
Right. And so you're saying that Fortnite might not be the best choice if you want to gather or build something specific, because it feels closed compared to something that's spatial, that is much more open, where you can build even your own custom analytic layer. And one thing I wanna to just, you mentioned about monetization and analytics. Can you explain us that maybe? So monetization for the brand or for the platform itself? I mean, how does that work, and how does that
So
connect with that?
mostly for users. Like this is something that applies very well for user generated content. So if you are somebody that's a user, so it's not a creator, but you want to start creating, or you are a creator and you want to make independent money out of the creation you do, then those platforms give you several options of doing that. Obviously, the question is much broader than that, because brands do have their own I would say that their own monetization model, their own business model. So it really depends. I'm not expecting, for instance, Nike to want to make so much money out of a Fortnite game, but probably what they want to achieve there. It's a different investment.
Yeah.
So they want to establish their presence. They want to gain trust, again, those things that we already mentioned. But in general terms, the monetization, it's something that needs to work organically, in my opinion, or in our opinion, actually. You have to build an ecosystem. Yeah.
So in this case, the when you say monetization for the user, but it's more like the creator, the team or individual that is either coding something in C# in Spatial, or is maybe using the building blocks in Fortnite to build something that other people can experience and then earn money from the platform itself. In this case, Spatial, or let's say Fortnite. If I understand that correctly, then how are these monetization systems different and structured for the different platform? I just wanted to have a quick break to remind you that the recording of these episodes and many more great conversation with incredible experts are available on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcast. Just head over to my profile or in the episode description below and pick the platform you prefer. And now, let's get back to the show.
Yeah. Well, one quick thing is not that I'm saying that brands won't ever make money out of games. Probably that's gonna happen. It's not maybe it's not the right time. This is very early, so again, a digital presence for now. I think it's the main objective. But to answer your question is, there are several different approaches. Fortnite has a revenue share, so basically, they give you a percentage on the playtime, basically, which is very good. Too bad that this playtime is not super clear. So it's hard for the user to actually have a proof of what they're doing. Or Roblox, they're using Roblox. So basically, whatever micro or macro economy you want to build, you can leverage that internal that internal currency to make something. And this brings the rules of economy in. So if you make something that's good and people want to have it, they'll buy it.
Right.
And then obviously there are ads. Ads are always an option there. There is a certain threshold in which this thing, the ads start work and then it stops working. But this is again more linked to the ad world and the marketing world. Spatial, for instance, has their own currency as well, but you're free to use them as you wish.
So before we're gonna start discussing about the Awakening, right? The games that you guys have recently launched. I wanted to chip in on one thing that also Matteo was saying was about the long-term against short-term vision about this, right? So it's one thing is building a game and then forgetting about it, and how do you build continuity? Is that just can you reactivate a game that you have already built, or do you need always to keep building new games or expansion or tell a broader story? I mean, how can you also, from a brand perspective, leverage more out of that initial investment that was creating the first IP and maybe the initial project?
Yeah, definitely you can build a story. When you create the first game, you will create pillars, and constraints are great in design, right? Because when you know that you have 5 characters, then you can create a story about the characters, the interaction. So it's definitely start with the first that will give you and then a hint on what is going to be next. That's also something that happened in first person to us. So you start from a sketch, and then you discuss these in front of a beer, and then these evolve to another things. Before arriving to this kind of game, this typology, we cross at least 3 other prototypes of completely different games. So, but then now we have the pillars, now we have the character, now you have the story, and generally this is what is help, like constraints. For example, a brand like BMW, one of the design pillars there can be technology, for example. For Absolute was accessibility, diversity, inclusion. So you never start from zero for a brand perspective, because they already have all of this information and you can build everything on top.
Sure. And once you have built the first, then what's next, right? How do you try and get the most life out of it? Can you reactivate it? Or, I mean, what are the strategy that brands can use along with the agency, with the creators that have built those worlds?
Yeah, in this case, I would say is the context. So you usually create a game also based on an event is happening. Let's say an anniversary or a important conference for the company. And this can be an excuse to build something that is aligned with the theme. Let's say Christmas, right? You want to upsell your product for Christmas, and then you can make a game with some Christmas trees, I don't know, Lapland, Santa Claus,
of course,
Coca-Cola Dolce.
I also think that you should also see on what the gaming industry is doing since ages for doing that, because actually I don't think we need to reinvent the wheels in these cases. I mean, being brand activation doesn't make them very different from what games have been doing. For instance, free-to-play games, which I think are a good example, they have seasonal updates. The way seasonal updates work is a little bit dodgy, because actually they break a little bit the balance of the game. So people feel that shake in the game. I don't know, take Call of Duty, they introduce a new weapon, it is too good. So you just need to have it. So people are gonna play that game because it's just been revamped, but that's slight unbalance. So the idea of introducing a little bit of unbalance is a way of reviving a space. But there are other ways in which a game can be revamped. Like, for instance, recently Elden Ring released a new DLC. DLC is an expansion, so you just expand the story, you expand the elements, you expand the things that you can do in the world, and this will drive new life into the game. These are two examples of a paid game and a free-to-play game, how to revamp the game.
I wonder if in this world also, like when it's like web-based, for example, with spatial, there are somehow ways to reactivate. Because the point is that I might have an update, but how am I going to communicate that there is an update, right? So how do I reach out that specific user that when in my world maybe spend 15 minutes sliding through the slides of Absolute, collecting stuff, and then it's like, oh, now we have a new track with different collectibles. Come and join us. Are there ways to reconnect with users in the past on a web platform like Spatial?
Yes. On Spatial, we can do that, because we can reach out to the players that if they want, they can be recontacted for those updates with newsletters, like the good old newsletters. It's working, but obviously it really depends. Like again, looking back to what other games are doing, they keep the game alive. They make changes constantly, and players know what's up next. So basically, a good strategy is keeping contact with your players and community.
Spatial release also friendship, so now you can have friends and Spatial. So there's the social part of these is definitely important. Also, if Kasama will make a new game, then we have friends there, and so there are many ways internal to the platform, but also external. I'm talking about social media. I'm talking about Discord.
Of course. So, but before you guys start building a new game, why don't we start talking about Kasama the Awakening, actually? And I would like to take this opportunity to show a little trailer so that people can get an impression about story, beauty, and all vibe of this game that you guys pushed on Spatial. So let's see the little trailer.
Let's go.
Well, look who decided to show up. Even light casts shadows. It's time the world accepts this. Join me, little one. We'll make the world a better place. I promise.
So the game is out right now, and you will find the link to play it down below in the description. But maybe you guys can tell us, where was Kasama born in a way, and maybe you can tell us also a little bit about this world.
Yeah, around 2.5 years ago, I met Paride, and because a friend introduced us for the passion of virtual reality, as I met you, Gabriele. And we actually jumped on a share room at the moment. I was trying to sketch some characters, and Paride see the potential in these of creating a game, an ecosystem, possibility of animated this character. And so from there we start is a modern love story of virtual reality.
And so what about the world and the story around it?
Yeah, so the story is actually very simple. So I really love roasted chestnuts. That simple. So that's why is the logo of the company. We come from Italy, and This is one of the trees there is part of the character, and there is it's common to gather together during autumn cooking. This was just an idea, or if you want, a design pillar I said to you before. And so this is basically combined with the idea of these characters generate the idea of the Kasama. The Kasama art is the creature that you become when you enter the dream world. So the idea is that every human, based on his characteristic, will become a Kasama in the dream world. And in this game, you will encounter the gods that basically regulate the dream world that are other Kasama that would prefer.
So, and maybe since we have made, I imagine that you guys wanted to build something very specific with a certain look, with a certain feel, with certain mechanic, and that's why you ended up taking spatial. So, while developing for this platform, what were some of the challenges that you encountered?
Yeah, the challenges are the challenges of making a game that's running on all platforms smoothly, that's running on web, by still keeping the quality of an actual game. So I would say that the biggest challenge is making a game that's incredibly accessible, despite the fact that actually, at least we hope so, looks a real game. So it's not looking like those very early metaverses. So we believe that this is the kind of look and feel that game should have right now. So this is definitely a challenge.
So, but can you explain, because so there is one part, it's gameplay, right? And that is one element of it. The other is how the game looks. And that sounded like one of the things that you are referring to. Maybe if you be a bit more specific. I played the game. It is absolutely gorgeous. But what does that mean, making it gorgeous while keeping it running on all platforms?
So accounting to all platform means accounting to several limitations combined. So say you're working on Android and WebGL, those two platforms obviously have their own challenges and limitation. For instance, WebGL has some memory limitation in terms of graphics. So this is your first limitation, but that combines with maybe some limitation that Android has. Obviously, those things come when you really want to push the boundaries. So when you really want to make something that's almost outside the capabilities of the final platform. So technically, this is the challenge. So making things very lightweight, keeping memory low, but keeping at the same time quality high. Is that answering your question?
Yeah. One thing, for example, I've seen is that the lighting it's indeed very different from what you encountered in many of these web-based games, right? So it feels like there are a lot of reflections. So we can discuss about lighting, and maybe we didn't need to go into that technically, but what are some of the things that you have learned? And it's like, okay, this was one thing that we discovered that actually it really helped keep the memory usage low, or lower the poly count, or keep the frame rate smooth. Something that you can share with people who are having the same struggle as you.
So we know a lot about lighting. So we know a few tips and tricks to make the lighting look, even if it's on a performance budget or on a memory budget. For instance, making good contrast, or giving good elements of highlights close to dark areas. This is giving a lot of life into the image. So these are the tricks. But for instance, we designed the world in a way that even if you switch off all the lights, still looks lit, still looks correctly working. That's giving us, for instance, a foundation of a very good look, on which you can build on top of that and have something that's even richer. So, for instance, the environment has all the baked shadows and ambient occlusion. Obviously, this is dangerous, because if you're making, for instance, if you're putting shadows somewhere but that object moves, the shadow stays there. So you have to be very clever in what things can have this static approach and what things are dynamic. Also, we worked a lot on the idea of having a very small environment but incredibly rich and dynamic. So the big challenge there was to probably you've seen it, but changing the look of the same scene over and over without changing the scene, which was a challenge. But yeah, working on these strong points and keep iterating on them.
And again, I would recommend people to go there and try it out, because you will see what also Party demands when we switch off all the lights. That's literally what happened at some parts of the game. So you should really try it out. And from a narrative perspective instead, Matteo, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the story and gameplay. How do they all interact, and how did you try to keep people engaged for 10 or more minutes? I think it was more than 10 for me, but maybe you can tell us what you guys have been trying and how you have approached that.
Yeah, so we definitely had a longer part of our research where we wrote down the story, and thanks for that. Definitely helped to understand. So there are the story is about these four main characters. That was born from the chestnut tree, so they are brother and sister. But one actually fell behind the tree and have never been discovered by the three brothers. So in this game, you will encounter these three brothers, and the other one is actually the one mysterious. I don't want to spoiler too much. Play the game, but there is someone who. Grew up alone and isolated, and is create a couple of problems. And these characters actually are the four characters that control the dream world. Specifically, there is Hypno, that is the wise one that make you fall asleep. Then there is the one Morpheo who created dreams. Then there is Fowl, who is able to wake you up. And then there is the enemy, that is the one who created nightmares. And thanks to these, we basically create, okay, we have one scenario. What if we showcase the power of each of the character in this four scenario? So you start from the chapter 1, and then during the chapter, you will encounter a different gameplay based on the powers of these characters.
Exactly. So at the beginning, it is still relies on a simple mechanic, but it feels really like you are progressing. It's like, oh, okay, this has changed. Now I have to do something different, right? It's not just talking to people. It's doing something else, for example, or finding object, or maybe finding object now is useless, right? So again, don't want to spoil anything. Check it out. While we wrap up, I had another questions that project us towards the future, right? So I imagine that building a game like this is not necessarily something you do in your pastime, right? It requires people, resources. So you as a studio, right, how come decided to invest so much effort in building something like this? And how do you envision that helping you as a studio, broadening your offering, for example, or the scope of what you do?
Yeah, I will maybe answer the first part, and then I will leave you the other part. But in January, Paride asked me, okay, this year we are going to make a masterpiece, or we are going to solve a problem through a software. What should we do? And we decided to go for a masterpiece. That's the idea. Paride, what do you think?
Yeah, no, we I do believe in a rule that since now worked, but I don't know. I hope I won't be proven wrong. But I always trust that quality and love putting into a project will pay off. And obviously, I don't want to make it sentimental, but what we are expecting from this game is a good example of what we think it's a good way of making games for brands and for activation. So basically, we do expect that this will give us an edge on the competition, and probably a competitive edge also on the market.
As you saw also, Gabriele, in virtual reality, like how many titles are Half-Life Alyx or Robo-Recall? So what we are trying here is to push the boundary of a 3D browser game at its best. That was the idea.
Absolutely. And I think that indeed this was, without being kind or anything, and I think it was a different example of what you get, something that feels more like produced and taken care of than something that you just, another browsing game where I have to collect coins. That's just the thing. So, and especially after the first minutes, it's interesting, but that's the moment that you start transitioning to this world that things is like, okay, now I'm hooked. So I think give it a couple minutes to progress towards the next world, and then that's the moment that you will play until the end, because it is really what it is. And I think I want to stress also one thing is that this is also about doing what we love, right? And that's also very important, because whenever it wouldn't be the first time that people, studios, agency give up because they start working on project on things that doesn't give them energy anymore, right? So I think that also the love for beauty and craft, that's also be something that everybody should pursue, regardless of necessarily what sounds like a financial gain. And I'm pretty sure, Paride, that you made a good point, right? Being like, it's gonna come back, right? It's gonna come back because it's the love for the craft. It's also what people see and admire, regardless purely on the dollar sign or euro sign on stuff.
Yeah, truly agree on that. Yeah.
There is no monetization in this game, so it was truly a work of the art.
Absolutely. So, guys, I mean, for everybody listening, go there, play it out, because it's a very interesting short experience that you can enjoy, and potentially even, I think, play a couple times, because the world is really dense. So there are many little details and many little things that you will discover only when you play, let's say, a second time. And again, it's not monetized, as Matteo said. So I really recommend it. So guys, it was a real pleasure. It was a real pleasure. Maybe do you want to close up? What's next for Pijama Kasama? You now release this game. What are your focus? Are you working on anything VR? Are you working on anything web, or what's next?
So we cannot fully disclose, but we are working on both. So web game and virtual reality. We are super excited, and already our vision of bringing movies and games together is happening. So we are pretty excited to try to showcase the idea that this where this game is made and what we can do for others, or in collaboration with others to make this happen.
Guys, again, Paride and Matteo, thank you very much. It was a real pleasure. Best of luck with the launch, and I'm pretty sure we'll have other opportunities to connect.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you very much for listening in. If you like the show, please leave a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or a thumbs up on YouTube. It really means a lot to me, and it's a great support for the show. Till next time.